For fun meeting for this evening, first I'd like to bring Scott Elder from Steve for well, so we need KF award, and I'll make it on that.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Quickly, just a explanation of what PBIS is. I think I explained a little bit last year. How it got started was there was a study done several years ago that showed that teachers were spending 20% of their time on discipline matters in the day, which equates to a full day of a week. And so what was decided is what we're doing isn't working. And so the University of Oregon got together a bunch of educators and said, what do we need to do? And they came up with this framework and called it Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports. And with that, it kind of started spreading across the country. Then about 7, 8 years ago, the state legislature said, this is a great idea. We want schools to do it. So they made it a law that all schools had to put in PBIS. One of the things that the Ohio Department of Education at the time, now the Department of Education and Workforce, decided was we need to acknowledge schools that are doing this well. That there's lots of schools that are kind of putting things in. There's other schools that aren't doing anything with it. What about those schools that are doing things well? So they created a PBIS award. And each year we send out to the schools, hey, if you'd like to apply for this award, please do. The application process, the amount of evidence that schools have to show, ask any of your principals, because they've all been going through it. It used to be that you had to put it into a binder, and that binder would be about that thick. Now it's electronic, and so it's not as cumbersome, but it's still a lot of evidence. They're trying to streamline it, but I think you know how that goes with the state. So that being said, when I first came and started working with, I work with the state support team. I work as a PBIS consultant, a state and a school improvement consultant, and started working with Claymont and talking to different principals, and we saw that there were pockets, things going on, some more than others. And so they created a PBIS district team. And in doing that, that's when they said, okay, so what do we want Claymont students to be when they graduate? What do we want? What characteristics do we want? And that's where CARE came in. So CARE standing for cooperation, accountability, respect, and effort. And if you go around to all the buildings, you'll see that. But it's more than just that. It's not just some words thrown up on a board. It is teaching those expectations. What is cooperation? What is accountability? What is respect? What does it look like in the cafeteria? What does it look like in the restroom? What does it look like in the hallway? And so it takes a lot of effort for teachers and administrators to do that, to teach students what those expectations are. But it pays off in the long run because you have fewer suspensions, you have fewer expulsions, and you have attendance going up because kids start wanting to come to a positive environment versus a culture that is just solely focused on discipline. So with that brings me to today. 2 of your buildings have applied and have received the award this year. The first was, they're a repeater. Claymont Elementary came in and earned the bronze award. There are 3 awards. There's a bronze, which is tier 1, that's just for everybody. Tier 2, which is when you have a small group of kids that need just a little bit more support. And then tier 1 or tier 3 is the individual supports. Bronze to me is one of the hardest things to get, because you have to show that you're making an impact on all the students. And so with their second year, Nick, if you want to come up, I'll present this to you. I also want to acknowledge Kristen Metzger and Richard Page, who both worked really hard to put this in. You got to look in the smile now. Thanks. Congratulations. And I have to say, like the next one, they've done so much work. Like the amount of work they've done in the last 2 years has been phenomenal. I witnessed the changes and the frustrations and all the work that went into getting to the point where they could say that they had PBIS in with fidelity, and that's the high school. So Amy and Kelsey. Amy, you have to come up too. You have to come up too.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very
Get
much.
your feedback. Thank you.
Time where that they have open office hours for district plans for clients. Graduate for buildings. Then we play on here teams that qualify for state competition. They have fared very well. The Mont Cloud team, they won the state competition this past weekend. They went Thursday, and then they home on Saturday. They got to get to that point. And March in the practice quarter, exciting the last time they were able to get there. The Mont Cloud team. Announcements were made for the class of 2024, valedictorian and salutatorian. So we got validate will be valedictorian and also annual Nagar, annual 6th place, Ohio High School Athletics Association graphic.
I want to thank the schools that participated in elementary and middle school for the reflection and Rainbow Connection. Rainbow Connection is very dear to me. I've been involved with 47 years. So, it's very nice to go in there and see the Claymont support when you're at the telephone. I want to say thanks to the high school for the math that they provided. Those are just wonderful. It's a wonderful organization. So if you're not familiar with the Rainbow Connection. And one more thing with Age Well, the high school put together, started a little business through like junior achievement. And Mr. Zimmerman contacted me and purchased them. And so sponsored it in. So if you're over, they say over 50, but I really suggest anybody get them. It's kind of interesting to read what the kids put together and how they put it together. And I'm not saying it because I'm playing on, but when you see what other junior achievement did, theirs is more, they pick something that's already made. These kids actually produced a product, and that's really impressive to me. And and they're also getting some back to when you, they're actually on a community service, they're providing a product, and I think they're still actively selling them. So if anybody wants to get an age well, get a hold of Mr. Zimmerman's on, high school, $35. I suggest, we all condemn it. I'm over 50, so I find it very useful, but I think that people under 50 would find it very helpful. Because we're not a healthy group of under 40 seats or under 50. But anyway, so I wanted to say kudos to them, and it was very, I was very proud. I'm always proud of the event. It was very, when it was the Rainbow Connection and they were talking about it, I felt really proud of that student. Thank you.
I'm going to add, tomorrow night, 8, well, we're both presenting that, really flat out. So, great, if you're tomorrow night, that's good.
Get a motion and a second to go into executive session for employment and matters required to become confidential by federal law. Yeah.
You can have residents' name placed on the agenda. A sign and sheet is available on the board for every board meeting. Anyone who wishes to recognize something, make themselves known by pleading and submitting the registration sheet to the board present prior to the start of the meeting. No presentation shall exceed 5 minutes. If the multiple speaker indicates a desire to speak on the same issue, the presiding officer shall relate to the board's desire to have the speaker designate 2 people to speak on what is written. The presiding officer has the right and power to hold the meeting and make whatever act is necessary to ensure an orderly meeting, including prohibiting harassing, repetitive, and critical comments and statements which constitute personal attacks, insult, or offenses directed specifically to an individual, or instantly reflect injury or intend to incite the immediate breach of the peace or otherwise constitute unprotected fighting orders under federal court jurisdiction. Removing individuals from meetings if they are disruptive, including contacting law enforcement, and call for a recess or adjournment to before order. The board has the audience to refrain from responding to the comments, including cheering and applauding, so that the board members focus their attention entirely on the speaker. Although the board may ask clarifying questions, please be reminded that the board cannot respond directly to any comments made this evening. This evening, we have Tessa Palmer from 576 East First Street.
Good evening, members of the Claymont School Board. My name is Tessa Palmer, and I am a sophomore at Claymont High School. I'd like to begin by thanking you for this opportunity to speak. It means a lot to me to be able to be here to speak on behalf of the students at Claymont High School. As we all know, despite the heightened acceptance of discussions around mental health, there is still a negative stigma attached to it, and conversations surrounding mental health are often deemed as unnecessary and trivial. However, the exact opposite is true. For many, their mental health is not something that can be ignored. Due to a number of factors, many have mental health problems that can interfere with their day-to-day life and their ability to properly function. But due to the negative stigma that comes with mental health issues, it takes some years before they can work up enough courage to come forward, which often leads to those issues growing in the meantime. That is why it is so important for students to have guidance counselors available to talk to about these things. As for many, mental health is not something that can be discussed at home. And if a student of high school age bottles up the mental health troubles they are having now, who is to say how these troubles will continue to affect their life going into adulthood? Over the last few years, I myself have dealt with both anxiety and depression. This anxiety is not just a feeling of nervousness. It is an overwhelming feeling of both uneasiness that you can't shake and a feeling of dread that looms over you, generally with no real reason or cause. This often leads to panic attacks, which leaves me unable to perform in class. Over the course of this year alone, there have been numerous times where I was in the midst of one of these panic attacks and needed to speak to Mrs. Trimmer, only for her to be busy with another student or task. I am no way blaming her for this. All I am saying is if there have been plenty of times when Mrs. Trimmer was busy when I was struggling and needed to talk to her, how many more students do you think have been in that exact situation? And if you do decide to move Mrs. Crone to the intermediate school, more than doubling the number of students that Mrs. Trimmer is responsible for, how much more of a common occurrence will that become? Thankfully, I am lucky enough to have a support system outside of school that consists of people who I can trust and be there for me when I need it. However, not every student at CHS is that fortunate. For many, Mrs. Trimmer or Mrs. Crone is the only person they have to talk to. For my entire life, I have struggled with feeling like a burden to the people around me, so I could only imagine how painful it would be to have the only person who I can talk to about my mental health be made unavailable to me because they are too busy with countless other responsibilities. And as I said before, it takes many people years before they can come forward about their mental health struggles. So if someone were to come forward about their mental health for the first time and were not to be heard and listened to, what are the chances that they will cease all attempts at reaching out for help? I have spoken to Mrs. Trimmer a number of times this year and have seen the amount of responsibility she alone has. Moving Mrs. Crone to the intermediate school would more than double these responsibilities. It is incredibly difficult to help someone in a crisis when you yourself are overwhelmed. And if Mrs. Trimmer is busy near and if Mrs. Trimmer is busy nearly the entire school day with half the school, imagine what her day would look like being the sole guidance counselor of an entire high school. The issues that will arise if Mrs. Crone is moved to the intermediate school that I've laid out are not based on personal feelings alone. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among 14 to 18-year-olds. In 2023, more than 50,000 Americans committed suicide. Our country is in a mental health crisis, and with various things like social media and the seemingly infinitely increasing cost to live, it is hitting high school-aged children in a detrimental way. Now more than ever, students need someone who they can talk to at school if they are struggling, and moving Mrs. Crone to the intermediate school would not just be making Mrs. Crone unavailable, but oftentimes as well Mrs. Trimmer. I'll finish by saying that a student's mental health is not just about how they feel in the present. If a student is having a mental health crisis, it could lead to them missing class or performing poorly, which could lead to bad grades, which could lead to a lower GPA and less opportunities for that student. It's important to remember that a student's mental health does not just affect their present, but also their future. Thank you.
Just a couple. I'll keep it just to three, actually. The first thing I want to do is give kudos to our preschool. They went through their Step Up to Quality review last week. And we got a 5-star rating, which we expected, right, Mrs. Cook? And I just wanted to kind of lay it out there early that for you guys, that there's going to be some changes in the way Step Up to Quality is rated in the future. Beginning in July, they're getting rid of the 5-star system, going to a 3-tier system of bronze, silver, gold. And the gold level will be 4 and 5-star, currently 4 and 5-star rated. So in July, we'll probably have to do some rebranding a little bit about our rating, but we will be considered a gold rated program. So just wanted to kind of keep you in the know about that. And also, there's a couple things on my reports that I wanted to share about House Bill 33 coming up for next year specifically. One of the things in that House bill is a requirement for science of reading training for all teachers and all administrators. The teachers that have gone through our letters training a couple years ago, or second, third grade, and the ones that are going through the letters training this year and next year will be exempt from that because the letters training takes the place of the science of reading training that is required. But in our PD for next year, and the majority of the staff will have to go through that science of reading training. In addition, with House Bill 33, there is a requirement for districts to use high quality instructional materials. They have a panel right now at the state level that's reviewing ELA curriculum options that are available at the state, and they're creating a list of approved curriculum that districts have to adopt by the end of next year. I want to give kudos to our curriculum review staff because everything we've purchased so far with our ESSER money are on those lists of high quality instructional materials. So the foundations that we purchased and the Wonders K-5 are on that list. So that list is continually being revamped. Right now, they're only working on K-5. And I believe the rest of the year, they're going to be working on the high school, middle school level curriculum. So we might have to do some adjustments there if what we purchase is not on the list. But I just wanted to kind of give a shout out that the committee that went through that review made some good choices. So we're ahead of the game. It's nice to know that.
Good evening. I have a statement on behalf of our high school and the high school staff. Upon hearing the decision to eliminate a school counselor position at our school, the hallways rattled with frustration. We collectively had conversation about how this would impact our students, our staff, and effectiveness of our school. None of those conversations led to a positive outcome. All of our students come to our classrooms every single day with a backpack full of things we don't know about. It could be problems at home, parents or lack thereof, abuse, drug abuse, self-harm, mental illness, or just overall pressures of being a teenager. This is the reality in our country and all over the country. As good teachers, we understand that. It is our job to teach our content and support social emotional learning. Sometimes those emotional needs must come first and need to be addressed, often immediately, before learning can take place. By taking away a school counselor, the opportunity for students to receive the support they need during times of trauma, after or more importantly, before being triggered, will be diminished. Another important thing all good teachers know is that you have to take care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs before you can teach Bloom's taxonomy. Meaning a child's social, emotional, and physical needs must be met before meaningful learning can take place. We are sure we don't need to tell you that many of our high school students are facing those needs not being met right now and need their counselor's support. If we are down a school counselor, the ability to address this problem is only going to be exacerbated. Our school counselors sometimes bear the largest brunt of this struggle. They take on things that we cannot handle within a class period and are able to help the students on an individual level. Some students rely on their support daily. I cannot express how important their job is not only to the students, but to the staff as well. Without both counselors, we are going to see those needs not being met simply because one counselor does not have the time to focus on over 450 students. Currently, our counselors take care of tough bags, which provide food for our students in poverty. Will only one school counselor have time to complete this task on top of their other responsibilities? So far this school year, CHS has had over 24 suicide referrals to date. What happens to those students when there isn't someone there to help them through a crisis? When dealing with familial abuse, many of our students trust in our in our school counselors to help them. How many students would be missed for needed intervention, referral, or CPS report because the student wasn't comfortable enough to report? With only one person doing the job will become insurmountable in a position that has already become increasingly difficult year after year. If this is a financial decision, maybe it is best if we think of this in financial terms. Without both of our counselors, we are going to see students' grades suffer because their needs will not be able to be met. Graduation rates will slip because we will not have sufficient help to make sure students stay in school and are held accountable for making it to the end. Students will also struggle to focus on our high-stakes state tests if they are stressed and don't have their needed trusted adult. This will no doubt impact the school financially, either by funding or students leaving the district due to a lack of support. We failed to see how cutting a position now will benefit anyone in the long run. The long-term costs of this will far outweigh the short-term benefits. It seems this decision doesn't have a positive effect educationally or financially. Even though we don't get to have input on these decisions, you are our leaders that make the decisions. We thought we'd be remiss if we didn't take this opportunity to address the situation at hand and hopefully influence you to keep from moving forward with a decision that will undoubtedly harm our students. We are very proud of our school. The environment we built collectively is one of empathy, understanding, collaboration, and overall meaningful learning. Many of our teachers have been in the district for a lot of years. That is a significant amount of experience, an impressive amount of students, and a lot of lives we have the privilege of being a part of. Our school counselors have a similar impact. By removing one, you are actively choosing to take away a helpful, trusted adult from giving an experience that a student needs to only do their best, but unfortunately, at times, one they need to survive. By cutting this position, the message being sent to our students is that money matters more than they do. A message that is more important to save money than it is to provide their trusted adult to help them deal with their problems and guide them in the direction of their dreams. Our district mission statement is to create an environment that nurtures, develops, and empowers each student. We ask you to reflect on that statement and question whether this decision accomplishes that. We assure you, in our opinion, it does not. We implore you, do not take away one of our colleagues from our students who need them. Do not choose money over the mental health and well-being of our students. Thank you for your time and consideration of our thoughts.
The other one, for solar panel RFP, the results came in on the, that's kind of like how rely on, over the top, pretty fun, but there's, um, again, the next slide, for we received this height energy last week, and of course, have placed in your update for so the initial project reviews. So what we worked at under this slide, the initial projections. We had, or what we were anticipated, the best case scenario was basically at $1.5 million. The worst case scenario was a little less than 1.1, so 1,000. As far as the scenarios were added those panels would take still, but then still get some agricultural field, more purposes of the, farmers who are growing crops. So plus that would be one additional projects for going into the next slide. And then, just back up on this, but in the blue is our site. For the, high school that proposed to be 1.5, kilowatts power. Right. But the red, that solar, or but they that does 1.2 million. That watt. Then that started. Then that piece there, what we are receiving would not fully outfit the whole high school by paying the whole bill for, our energy consumptions. Now, I know that Beth and I talked about what are we doing in student lives to exceed that numbers and what we do to take off that in the future. We have some different ideas regarding that, especially whenever mainly the building is dedicated, during the 2 months, and all back up.
His goal was to try to get as close to the school production as he could without one food. What it basically does is it keeps our meter runs about. So then when we do use it, then it use what, full. So like, we're not selling it to outside public or anything. Get as close as we can to our high schools.
And 3 bidders that made it in on time as far as the, deadline to apply. Those were PMI Energy, Coral Reef, and, Claymont. So TMI, based upon the estimated savings, they're coming out and saying over a period of time, that they would save us, $1,153,972. Coral Reef, they said they could save us $770,000. And then, I'm not sure why you put a bid in, if you want, can't save any money. But the, logic said, we can't save any money. So, that's in on time, there were 5 bidders at the site walk. So that's the projection of what they. Bid price, they're talking about, here's the difference in that. Looking at kilowatt, if we start a project, if we approve the project, we would save $153,000. If we approved it for completion in 2024. If we approved it later date, then it pushed in to the completion date of 2025. They're saying you're losing that $153,000 in savings, by pushing it out 1.5 per year. So that's what they're looking at. TMI, is a school that has been, or not, it's an energy company that has worked in Ohio. They have provided references, and everybody that they call gave positive feedback regarding their, they're working with TMI. I do believe TMI was a school, or I've worked with 3 different school districts, with this one superintendent, over time. So they have a lot of projects within, so we're gonna save the $150-some thousand if we approve it, or project is complete, the project is done.
And that's because the starting amount of the 2% per year. So starting energy amount of 2% for 2025.
They're estimating dashboard as far as for savings, so they went through year 1, they're down to year 15 and up year 25, but that, their projected savings is at $1.1 million, for that 25-year period.
So that PPA rate, what they're comparing that to, that utility rate, where right now they're saying that 0.09. So we have a utility rate plus like the delivery rate, so we, so those two combined is like our electric rate right now is like 6 cents. But you add in the delivery rates and stuff on it, that's what takes it up to the almost 9 cents right now. So if we lock in a PPA rate is at 0.067.
Then they're looking at the site as far as layout, when the really projected is going to go along the Hill Road, and that they're facing south as far as the solar arrays. The company would be responsible for all upkeep, and they would be putting a fence in around the solar panel. They're in charge of running the line to the high school, or hooking to the high school. So there's no cost to the school district to do this as far as the company coming in and do it. That's where the school road rate would sit. And if you're looking at the field, there's still this base that is still farmable. We have talked to the farmer that institutes that field that needs to them regarding this. We have that's what it affects it to look like.
Energy travel, where the solar banners are, and then evergreen trees that are, about the roadside, so it's kind of. Right. Further back. Yeah. 15 feet back. Not right up there, like the following. Okay.
PMI.
We in the summer. They were looking at April approval timeline to allow us to get in October. I think what they said, but if it was further down than that, then we're probably right. They want to be summer. They can't get with all the sunshine.
The suggestion is to undertake a new business, approve the RFP with TMI Energy Solutions. And then that will give us a chance to go into PPA. And then once that's done, in fact, you guys take a look at PPA. And then whether it's we want to continue to move forward with through the PPA and then sign and move forward that.
So we have to approve it, then review it again after.
This would just be to approve the RFP. Basically accept the bid, but we can still reject the PPA. Well, that's if we approve a bid, that's the bid. Then that helps us move forward with PPA.
We don't have to wait to be able to, because I already did.
Correct.
That's that little bit, but you have to get involved.
Correct. If you have the PPA, to approve, then we want to be the people. And we can have, identity and, BOE present.
I mean. Wow. Schools, you know, the schools. I don't know a lot of. So anything that would look.
And for the property. And in comparison to the dollar. But. If he wants to, still, when rather than. Talk about this, meeting this week, we have discussed, yeah, different board meetings, where, how do we keep the, stadium open to the public use, but also have people respecting the property, or our stadium. Previous board meetings talk about, there are fines posted, that house that was in there, that shoulder in there, that, off, still on. We have a standards on tennis courts, that they were thinking that. Term for usage. I had contact chief of police, last spring, where our stadium is still monitored. They were unable to close it up at night because their phones went in the hole. They did that, they had to get out, walk the stadium, make sure they're open, but they're locked in. So that wasn't a viable option. So what we had to do was had it locking it, unlocking it at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we were locking it later in the evening. That was what we were looking at. Now, it had a plan for weekends, because weekends came, if you're talking about school employees, that extra money to pay them for something in. That in the morning, and then, Cody and Matthew now has looked into a lawn type system that could be attached to the, I don't know, on.
I was hoping to have the cost of that by today, but I don't. I have had a company come down and look at the gate that we purchased, and it can be tied in electronically. So not that everybody would wear a fob to get in, but it would just be open at a certain time, closed at a certain time, 7 days a week. So that would solve our weekend issue with having the people, not be able to come in and unlock and lock. So I don't have a cost yet for that. We need to do some more work because some of the things we've seen are people probably trying either they're climbing over the gate or doing whatever have pulled the gate loose and we have to need to bolt it back on the wall. So, I mean, it will solve the opening and closing, but it doesn't really solve the vandalism. So, I don't know what to do about that. I mean, we just keep fixing at an expense of, any of the stuff that, happens. We have turned in. Well, I mean, I think he talked about in tennis, I mean, I don't know, I have heard, I didn't see it, but firsthand, so I just had heard there were about 4 or 5 kids sitting on the nets, the tennis court nets, and it bent the posts. So that was last week, and that was $700 and some to have one set replaced. The gate, the large gate itself, we've had some issues with some things done with that. That's $9,000. And I know Kim and I have talked and we're not replacing that right now. That's a big chunk of money that we felt we're gonna, we've got it kind of tied together and secured and everything and leave it at that because that was a lot of money. So, I think most of it is like you'll see, the fencing, the decorative fencing in the front, that's decorative, if really anybody wants to bend those, break those. We see a lot of them are bent where I think people are trying to squeeze in between the things. We see people climb over the fence. So we have a lot of on the chain link fence bent over at the top, things like that, where they're scaling the fence. So, when we have good, which we've turned things into the police with footage and things like that. I've not seen anything or heard anything back on any kind of, we've not prosecuted anyone that I know of.
And well, obviously, the weather has been nice. Now
Mhm.
it's getting nicer, nicer.
Mhm.
The stadiums need to hang up.
Yes.
Whether it's turf itself is supposed to last 10 to 14 years to take care of. But whenever the usage of the field, it might decrease the number of years that the turf is applied. If we have the things that are happening that are on the field happening. Anything goes with the track. I like seeing it used. I like coaches working with their kids on the field. I walk around the outside of the track. The last week of softball, baseball on there. I enjoyed seeing it used for that even someplace to practice that wasn't there before. It's a concern as far as, and it's not our athletes that are going to work.
Mhm.
Not that are using the stadium. So I don't know, we have some people into the police, they crash cars. But, our civilians out there, there's a lot of costs against the primary cost in the building. We run people off. I don't know. If we don't do anything, leave it as is, keep it open. We're gonna incur costs down the road.
Yeah, I think one of the things we discussed with tennis season coming upon us is that, my fear was if that would happen, and I mean, there's a delay in getting that stuff, and if there's practice and there's, a match coming up and we don't have, the nets aren't usable, do we lock one of those that would be, just so we at least know we have 2 that are operational and leave the other open for community use? I don't know what the answer is.
It's very sad.
I'm thoroughly disgusted with the whole thing. So, yes.
Large donor to get the stadium going. And, what really sad is that in my house, if you store something, you don't get it back. So if you break your phone, you don't get it back. And I hate to have that in the community looking at it like we as a school district let it happen, but we as a school district are not letting it happen. I think it goes back to, parenting and being responsible and it's very sad. It's very sad. It's very disturbing to me. But
I'm not out there all the time, but I have walked by and seen a child manipulating his bicycle into the skate, and I said, oh, you're really clever, now you get it out, but you're not allowed to have it. And, I mean, it's part of the
I mean, it's like, yeah, if you see, I mean, it's like, it takes a community. I mean, I think that's like, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
You know, I've said things before to, and they look at you like, well, who are you, you know, but it's like, hey, you know. No, the sign, their signs, so they don't, yeah, they don't read the signs, so.
Think that, you know, we're saying it in the school, you know, the kids, you know. They don't know what, some of the younger kids don't realize what
They have.
we have and how much it costs to replace that. And, we won't have it. You know, they don't see that, you know, we'll just get new, you know. It's very sad.
Yeah.
And if I see somebody utilize that kind of,
Yeah,
anyway, it's just, like I said, it's very disturbing.
It's also sad to people in Korea, just, that's reach out to this week, and during last year, and you know, we voted. I think-
Yeah, I know it works both ways.
And we worked. See, and it's like, we even kind of built it, but we were building it,
Mhm.
we built it to people saying, you know, this would be. a
Dawn to dusk. Mhm.
walk.
I do, I mean,
It's not like, you know.
yeah,
It's hard.
yeah, it's not grass, so.
Sure, take down a fence.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Sorry. What's the chore to take down a fence?
The nets?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a couple hours, so yeah, and the sleeves and netting those, so yes, it's probably,
And
just to take them down, I mean, but I know, I get requests like, people want to use the tennis courts, and you know, it's that the people that want to use them are the people that are, they're not mistreating them, so it's just really a catch-22, and you know, that's where I was like, well, do we at least lock one of those that, you know, I asked Mr. Struken, like, which one is your primary one that you would use? I don't know.
Fortunately, the only way we're going to get our point across is to prosecute and hold somebody accountable for their action. I mean, if there's no consequences, I'm going to sit on the, you know, as a student or a person that's doing it, they're going to continue to do that. And you hate to say that, but we're going to have to force the law enforcement to, these are the 3 people that were sitting on the net that now costs us $700 to replace, that they need to be prosecuted. They need to spend, you're a juvenile, they need to go to juvenile jail, just like if I can go over to your house and sit on your fence and go in, you're gonna prosecute me. And you know, I hate to say that because I'm not a big person in prosecuting people, but if we're not going, we can't, as a school district, continue to replace things because people in the community want to vandalize it. And
Yeah.
it's not public property, it's school district property. We can't go, when you put up a tennis court in your yard, I can't go over there and vandalize it. And I hate to say that, I hate to be that person that's saying, you know, let's go to court, let's get the police involved, but unfortunately, unless you're gonna show me the money, you know, let them sit on the fence every day or break it, and then we just keep sending the $90,000 note to replace it.
I guess I just want to do we go forward with pursuing the electronic gate? Which,
said, we sent reports to the law enforcement footage.
Mhm.
Um,
I know I did one, I know that, Justin Jones has done, some as well.
that people climbing the fence.
Yeah,
People climbing the fence.
yeah, I'm not seeing them physically break something. I mean, like the net incident with the things, I heard that secondhand by like somebody said, oh yeah, I saw some kids the other night all sitting, 4 or 5 kids sitting on the nets, and they said which ones. I'm like, well, that's evidently what did it, because I'm surprised the nets didn't break, but that bent the poles. I don't know. I mean, I haven't caught them, so I don't know. Well, the footage that I've sent is, the stadium's locked. You'll see them go up to the turnstile and they'll try to get, it's locked, and that's pretty good camera footage in that area that you can clearly see who it is. And then they'll kind of go off camera, and then the next thing you know, they just kind of pop up in front of the concession stand, which means they're climbing the fence between the tennis courts and the concession stand. So, yeah, but I mean, both. I mean, if it's really dark, I'm not gonna see them in the cameras. So it's those would have been on weekends, because we had it locked over the weekend. So the stuff I've seen is weekends. Yes,
And it was unlocked during daylight hours.
they'd be able to go in.
Might be some of that
Yes,
during the daylight hours.
yes.
And then come nighttime, we probably have to go
With this fobbing system, like you said, police didn't want to do it because they sweep the area. This fobbing system is gonna be an automatic lockdown, and if I'm not watching,
Yeah.
give me an example, I'm over by the football pit, and oh shit, the gate's shut.
Oh, no, it'll go. You can get out. If you're in, you can get out. It only locks getting in. It's always, I had asked them to set that up, that if you're in, you can always get out.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like it's kind of like our buildings, you can get out of our buildings. You can't always get in, but you can get out, so.
Yeah, because when they said the police didn't want to do it, they wanted to sweep the area, I don't think, I couldn't run that fast.
Yeah, because,
Yeah. We did it like that. And then we were still having issues after dark. I mean, sure, I have everywhere.
Right.
And the only thing we do about that is to pursue charges against it.
yeah, yeah, I mean, that's where I think the police can help us. Because, we're not down there working when some of that happens. I mean, we've added lights off the press box that shine down on the field. It's not, I mean, it helps. It's not lit up like daylight. I don't think the neighbors would like that anyway, but we're doing that kind of to deter things from happening, like you'd have your light on and, outside your house, but, it's not 100%. So. They are steady.
Motion lights on, if you're out there, that will scare.
Yeah,
You're gonna think
yes.
that-
Yeah. No, we have the steady because I think the thought process was so our cameras will pick up more information, and that helps pretty much everywhere. So let's sit.
Another issue we had with our bus product our bus product.
Became the public restroom, and
Hey, I want to do a cut to walk track, I gotta borrow the bathroom and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So if we have the automatic lock, that's what I talked about, just having a payment record open. So that way, it's hard, if you need to walk 3 weeks through the day, don't stop at the intermediate, don't say, hey, I need to come to the restroom. That's a lot of stuff. Stand that stuff up. I mean.
well, I think I think with our bathrooms, because we've not had those open before, but what we talked about with the family one, it's one restroom. Because we have had problems where if we would have the men's or the women's open, now that was our old stadium and they weren't the nicest, but still. We had a homeless person living in there the one time, and we had somebody try to build a fire, and all of those things that go with, and then vandalism in those restrooms. So we felt that would limit our exposure to just having that single room.
I mean, you should see once you get the bid back to that law system. That process.
Yeah, I will know that. That's why I said I was hoping to have it. I should have it later this week.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's reasonable to do.
Yeah.
I think it helps.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you.
I think it would behoove us to actually do an article to the media. Put it on our website, we get it out there, to talk about, look, this is what we're gonna do, because that we owe it to the people to really support this project, be able to get in there. However, here's the issues that we've been having, trying to avoid that, so it will.
Yeah, we need your help, and if you see something, say something type of thing. So, okay, I think that's fair enough.
That's-
Start there.
I need to make sure it's- Gates, there's a number of steps.
Okay. All right, thank you for the input.
I think the treasurer's report recommendations. So, okay, that February, financials, fiscal year 2024, we're in 8 months. Total revenues. Actually, that is higher than, I'm sorry, lower. It's at 69.93% for that, 8 months in is 67%. It's up 2.15% over fiscal year 23. I did get pre-tax advances that total $1,975,000. I did go up to the courthouse today and receive our final settlement, which was another a little over $1.4 million. So I deposited that to the bank today. Interest for fiscal year is we're shy of $300,000. Total expenditures are lower than budgeted. We're at 62.03% right now. 86.7% related to salaries and benefits. We're down 0.66% from last year. So total revenues for fiscal year 2024, we're at 15.6 million. The total expenses is just over 14 million. We had a surplus in February due to those tax advances of almost $1.7 million. So our surplus for the year is at $1,559,000. Two days cash and opportunity. As for three expenditures, we're winding down these funds. We had $132,000 paid out during February within for the chillers and water coil conversion and the CIS remodel, which my understanding is almost complete. They're looking at moving over spring break, so that's good here. We still have $247,000 of outstanding purchase orders with that balance of $49,000. That's for February, we had $280,000 that we filed for reimbursements for our state and federal programs. With $72,000 also coming from the National Lunch Program. So for the fund, total fund balance and through February, we're sitting at $9.4 million. Any questions or reasons? We're approving the financial reports for February, and we had a bill from February. There was a regular board meeting February 12th, and a special board meeting on February 16th for the minutes, and then the budget commission each year, we have to approve on what the Tuscaloosa County auditors award for millage for this calendar year. So we have, general funds at 4.2 mils. And then another general fund of 20.5 million, and then the voted in millage was from an improvement of 2 mils in general fund. Improvements.
That's that approval, that's something that happens every year, and that's a staff.
Yeah, I just have a resolution that I put it before the board, and you guys approve them, and then I'll send it. Mrs. Grandison, yes. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
And Mrs. Well, yes. Thank you.
Motion and second for the superintendent's item. Mind you that we are pulling items E through H and separate group of vote. Items for high school science, we have Allison Delaney as high school science teacher, master's step 2, and then the proper credentialing. And Allie is in that position now, and is has been our current basketball coach. 1 year limited contract with a 90-day probationary period set 0 for Lenny Lynn at 2.5. She's been in that position since February 26th, 2024. Second resignation for Linda Davis for retirement purposes. Effective is the 26th of 24. Congratulations, Linda, on her pending retirement. Accept the teacher's resignation, effective February 26th. Moving on to the next page, item I will be the overnight mock trial. And they completed back on 7th to 9th. The application is prepared for overnight May 2nd to 4th state convention. We have the EMS link, the website app, so they have a service agreement for that. A lot of our folks have downloaded that app and use that to keep up on our happening for school. Internet security agreement was securely, and then we have info to approve, all our info available. Last item is N, from substitutes, Carol Bates, secretary, with what Parker, and then Robert.
I just have a question about the key invoice. I saw there were a couple items that need to be updated. So this is, I think that's, I noticed in the high school handbook, there were a couple of new policies that you were referring to in there. So if we include these, then that any information we have is back and then. Yeah, we're changing that, right?
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison, yes. And Mrs. Well.
And a motion and a second for item E through H. Item D through H, include a celebrated bond for April for this school year, not new supplemental contracts, as listed there. We have the following athletic contracts for next school year, pending the proper credentialing, for football. We already hired all except for tennis at this point, I believe, and approved Sherry DC Football volunteer football coach for this coming school year.
Ms. Campbell, yes. Ms. Well, yes. Ms. Grandison, yes. And Mr. Peters. And under new business, do we want to add, contract with RFP? Yeah, like,
Very much to do, at the,
Peters,
yes.
Ms. Campbell? Yes. Mrs. Grayson? Mrs. Wynn?
Yeah, we'll move forward tomorrow with identity for PTA. Again, we're not locked in, we're just moving forward with it. We come back to PTA and say, this is advocated for it. And we move forward.
Motion and second for executive session under employment and matters regarding federal health regulations and state taxes.
I'll make that motion.
No action to be taken. Hotel? Ms. Gamble?
Yes.
Ms. Grayson? Yes. Mr. Peters? Mrs. Wilson?